What if the most disturbing part of a film never made it onto the screen? When people talk about behind the scenes, they imagine something almost comforting. Actors laughing between takes, directors giving calm instructions, a carefully controlled illusion being built piece by piece. But every now and then, a film breaks that pattern. Every now and then, the line between performance and reality starts to blur, and something much heavier takes its place. That's exactly what happened during the production of The Passion of the Christ. This wasn't just another cinematic project aiming for realism. It was something far more intense, something that pushed beyond the boundaries of traditional filmmaking, deep into the territory of physical endurance, psychological pressure, and what many involved would later describe as a profoundly spiritual experience. Directed by Mel Gibson, the film carried a vision that was uncompromising from the very beginning. There would be no softening of the brutality, no cinematic distance to make things easier to watch. Every moment had to feel real, not convincing, real. And that decision changed everything. Because when a film stops trying to simulate pain and starts demanding authenticity at all costs, the set itself begins to transform. The atmosphere shifts. The energy changes. What should feel like a controlled environment begins to feel unpredictable, almost oppressive. Crew members weren't just working on a movie. They were immersed in something emotionally charged, something that lingered even after the cameras stopped rolling. There are reports of silence falling over the set in ways that weren't directed, of people becoming unusually introspective, of scenes that didn't just look intense, but felt difficult to witness, even for those who were part of creating them. In the world of cinema analysis, we often talk about immersion as a tool for the audience. But here, immersion seemed to consume the people behind the camera first. And then there's the method behind it all. To understand why this production became so unsettling, you have to look at the philosophy driving it. This wasn't about spectacle. It wasn't about entertainment in the conventional sense. It was about creating an experience so raw, so unfiltered, that it would bypass logic and hit something deeper, something instinctive. The kind of storytelling that doesn't just engage your mind, but confronts your body, your emotions, your limits. But that kind of commitment comes with a cost. Because when realism becomes obsession, and when performance is pushed to its edge, something unexpected starts to happen. The actors don't just portray suffering, they begin to carry it. The set doesn't just host a story, it starts to absorb it. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the production moves into a space where control becomes fragile. At first, it's subtle, a shift in tone, a growing intensity, a sense that what's being captured on camera is no longer entirely staged. And then it escalates. Because what unfolded during those filming days wasn't just emotionally heavy. It became physically extreme in ways that no one could fully anticipate. And at the center of it all was a performance that would go far beyond acting, into something that many still struggle to define. And before we go deeper into what really happened on that set, there's something I want to ask you. If you're drawn to this kind of story, the hidden side of cinema, the moments where art stops being just fiction and starts touching something real, take a second to like this video. Not just as a gesture, but as a way of telling the algorithm that this kind of content matters, that these deeper, more unsettling explorations deserve to be seen. And I'm genuinely curious about you. Have you ever watched a film that didn't just entertain you, but stayed with you? Something that felt heavier than it should, almost like it reached beyond the screen? Comment below and share that experience. Because what happened here connects directly to that feeling. And your perspective might be closer to this story than you think. And if you want more content that goes beyond the surface, where we break down not just movies, but the psychological, symbolic, and sometimes disturbing truths behind them, consider subscribing to the channel. This space is built for those who don't just watch films, but feel them. Because what you're about to see isn't just another behind-the-scenes story. It's what happens when a performance stops being controlled and starts becoming something else entirely. There's a moment in filmmaking where everything still feels controlled. Lights are positioned, cameras are calibrated, actors step into character and step out again. It's a system designed to simulate reality without ever truly touching it. But during the production of The Passion of the Christ, that system didn't hold for long. Almost from the beginning, something about the environment felt different, heavier, as if the usual barrier between performance and experience was already thinner than it should be. Mel Gibson wasn't approaching this like a conventional director focused on pacing or spectacle. His vision leaned into rawness, into stripping away the protective layers that cinema builds around pain. This wasn't about making suffering look convincing. It was about making it felt. And when that becomes the creative direction, the entire dynamic of a set starts to shift. You're no longer managing scenes. You're managing emotional weight. Crew members would later describe the atmosphere as unusually silent, not because they were told to be quiet, but because something in the space demanded it. Conversations were shorter. Laughter was rare. There was a kind of collective introspection settling in, like everyone was processing something they couldn't quite articulate. In cinema analysis, we often talk about immersion as a technique used to pull the audience into the story. But here, it felt like the story was pulling the people behind the camera into itself. And that changes behavior in subtle ways. When the tone of a set becomes emotionally charged, people stop interacting the same way. They observe more. They internalize more. Even the pauses between takes start to carry a different kind of tension. Not dramatic, not explosive, just present, constant. And the more that tone settles in, the harder it becomes to separate what is being performed from what is being experienced. Because when realism stops being a tool and starts becoming a principle, every decision reinforces it. Every scene pushes a little further. Every take asks a little more. And without anyone explicitly saying it, there's an unspoken understanding growing among the cast and crew. This isn't just another project. This isn't something you can fully detach from when the day ends. And that's where things begin to shift in a way that no one on that set could completely control. Because the moment a film stops protecting the people creating it, it starts asking something back from them. Something that goes beyond technique, beyond performance, beyond the safety that cinema usually promises. If this idea resonates with you, this sense that some stories don't just get told, but actually take something from those involved, write the word immersion in the comments. Because what comes next pushes this even further into a territory where the body itself becomes part of the narrative. At first, the shift was almost imperceptible. A longer take here, a more intense reaction there. But then, something changed in a way that no one could ignore anymore. Because when a film commits fully to realism, the body becomes the first place where that decision shows up. And for Jim Caviezel, that line between acting and enduring began to disappear. You have to understand what was being asked of him. This wasn't just emotional depth or method acting. This was physical exposure to cold, to exhaustion, to repeated strain under conditions that would challenge anyone's limits. The scenes demanded not just expression, but submission to the environment, to the weight, to the unpredictability of what could happen next. And slowly, the performance stopped being something he could turn off. There are accounts of him dealing with severe hypothermia during the outdoor shoots. Long hours, minimal protection, a body pushed into survival mode while still needing to stay present in character. At another point, while carrying the cross, his shoulder was actually dislocated. Not simulated, not choreographed, real. And still, the cameras kept rolling, because the philosophy driving the film didn't allow for artificial interruption unless absolutely necessary. But it didn't stop there. During the flagellation scenes, what was designed to be controlled quickly became something far more dangerous. The physical impact went beyond what was intended, leaving real wounds, marks that didn't need makeup, reactions that didn't need direction. And in those moments, the question becomes unavoidable. When the body is genuinely in pain, what exactly are we watching? A performance or a human being trying to endure? And then came the moment that almost feels unreal even when you hear it. During one of the shoots, Caviezel was struck by lightning. It sounds symbolic, almost too on the nose to be true, but it happened. In the middle of a production already surrounded by intensity, that event added another layer of unpredictability, something that no script, no director, no preparation could account for. It's the kind of incident that shifts perception instantly, because now it's not just about pushing limits. It's about confronting something that feels completely out of control. And from that point on, the experience carried a different weight, not just physically, but psychologically, because when the body starts absorbing real impact, the mind follows. The boundaries that usually protect actors begin to weaken. The distance between "I am portraying this" and "I am inside this" becomes dangerously thin. If you've ever felt your body react to something fictional as if it were real, tension, discomfort, even pain, you already understand a fraction of what was happening there. So tell me, write "too real" in the comments if you believe there's a point where art crosses a line it was never meant to cross. Because what this experience left behind didn't end when the pain stopped. It stayed, in ways that are much harder to explain. What lingered after the cameras stopped rolling wasn't something you could point to or measure. It didn't show up in behind-the-scenes footage or promotional interviews. It showed up in silence, in distance, in the subtle way people carried themselves after being part of something they couldn't fully process. Because once a film crosses that threshold, where the body has already paid a price, the mind doesn't just reset. For many on that set, the experience didn't feel like a project that ended. It felt like something that followed them. There were reports of crew members becoming more introspective, more withdrawn, as if they were still trying to make sense of what they had witnessed and helped create. Moments that were supposed to be just another scene seemed to echo long after they were done. Not loudly, not dramatically, but persistently. And for Jim Caviezel, that weight appeared to go even deeper. When an actor pushes beyond performance into something that demands real physical and emotional surrender, there isn't a clear path back. The role doesn't just leave when the costume comes off. It reshapes something internally. And in his case, many believe that the impact of this film extended into his personal life and career in ways that aren't easy to separate from the experience itself. Because here's the part that rarely gets discussed in cinema analysis. What happens when a story isn't just told, but lived, even partially, by the people responsible for bringing it to life? What kind of imprint does that leave? Not on the audience, but on the creators? There's a difference between understanding suffering and being exposed to it in a controlled environment that slowly loses that control. And once you've crossed that line, even briefly, it changes your reference point. It alters how you perceive intensity, how you interpret emotion, how you relate to silence. Some describe the set as carrying a kind of presence that went beyond the technical aspects of filmmaking. Not necessarily something supernatural in a literal sense, but something deeply human, deeply psychological, and difficult to articulate. A shared awareness that what they were doing had weight, that it demanded something, and that, in some way, it took something in return. If this resonates with you, this idea that certain experiences don't just pass through us, but leave a mark, write "IT stays" in the comments. Because maybe the most unsettling part of all of this isn't what was filmed, or even what was endured, but the possibility that some stories don't end when the screen goes dark. They continue, quietly, in the people who live them, and maybe even in those who watch them closely enough.